Anyway, so last time we talked about your wedding. We talked about, how that was for you and leading up and getting your endowments, receiving your endowments the first time, right, the day before. And then we ended up going off on a wonderful, beautiful tangent just about cool spiritual experiences you've had. And that was awesome. And so that was wonderful. Today I just want to talk about what happened after that, after the wedding. If you want to say anything about, you mentioned that you went on your honeymoon to the Grand Canyon, but then what was life like as a newlywed? I don't even know where you lived at first. And then, as you started having kids, I don't even know how long it was. So just kind of what was life like after the wedding?
Okay.
And it doesn't matter to me who goes first.
So, I think the thing that was interesting to me was I already had a contract to teach.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was interesting because we hooked a trailer to our little old Mercedes and moved to Ogden.
So you moved directly to Ogden?
Yeah, didn't we?
Okay.
We didn't live in our house at first, though. We had an apartment, didn't we? What was the apartment? I can't remember.
It was this fourplex.
Okay.
Might have been a sixplex. But we were it was a sixplex because we were in the middle on the top floor.
Okay.
And it was really fun. It was just tiny.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a kitchen, living room, bedroom, bathroom.
Okay.
And it had a little storage area as you walked in the door, which you couldn't really use as a storage area. And there's no washer and dryer or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
So we had to go get...
Roughing it.
Yeah.
We went to a laundromat.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
you
went to a laundromat once a
Wow.
week. Yeah. It was kind of fun because we were in the Ogden 5th Ward,
Okay.
which is downtown Ogden.
Okay.
And a lot of other young couples were in it too. And so we had a great experience. I loved that ward.
It was very nice.
And some of them were going to Weber.
Okay.
Quite a few of them were going to Weber, actually. And then some were just starting their lives. And then there were people in the ward that had lived there, and there were big old homes that were down on Adams going up to Madison anyway. Just older homes.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was called to the bishop. He was made the financial clerk.
Yeah.
And I was called to young women, which I love.
Yeah.
I got to say one thing about that ward. Nobody had kept records.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
And I remember, where was it? I went down and found
Yeah, he found a whole bunch of records.
of all the records, and we
It was really cool. It was all the old records of
clear back into the...
very first of the church type records.
Like back to the 1800s even?
It was really cool.
boxes
Wow. Where'd you find them?
In the basement of the church.
in the basement. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it
And-
was really cool.
And so we didn't try to do anything except make sure they were saved. Didn't we take them to Salt
You
Lake?
took them to Salt Lake.
Yeah, took
Wow.
They were
that's
so
cool.
excited.
boxes of records.
That's
That
amazing.
was called the 14th Ward, wasn't it? What was it?
5th.
5th Ward. Where did I get 14? The old Ogden 5th Ward. And loving history, I had a problem because I wanted to read all. I saw samples and read them, but we did take them down to Salt Lake, and they were very happy.
Yeah.
It was
The
very
early Ogden
cool.
5th Ward.
That is
They were down in
amazing.
this little room. It was an amazing building. It was really a fun building. It was all different levels. And
Interesting.
you'd walk in the front door and the stairs went up quite a ways to the chapel.
Interesting.
And then the other way it went up to like classrooms. And then it went down into classrooms, but then there was a basement area that hardly anybody had ever been in for some reason. And way
Interesting.
back in this corner, kind of in this little room, it was just a little sectioned room that there were all these boxes. No one had ever done
Well, that's where
anything
those
with.
records were. Yeah, that's where they were.
And so
And did you go in that room specifically trying to find records?
yeah,
since
just
you
trying
couldn't
to find records.
Wow.
So, and since I'm an explorer of the world, I love secret rooms and things like that from growing up in New Hampshire. So we found those records. It was really cool.
Wow.
But he was actually the financial clerk.
Who didn't know anything about money. About, warrior.
And when he got called, the guy that trained him said, I have this little bottle of change in dollars, and if you don't have balance, just throw some of these in.
Oh no! That's
If you had overage, you took some out. Very, very interesting finance.
So,
Oh, that's funny.
and everything had to be done by hand on paper sheets.
Oh man!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there was no
Back in
computer.
the day, huh?
Yeah. And I had to leave every morning because my job was what? I can't remember.
He was teaching at State Industrial School.
Oh, that's right. I thought
Oh,
it was-
interesting. So
well,
that was your contract?
Yeah. You call it State Reform School, but they call it Industrial School. And I drove out to North,
Okay.
yeah. Where did I can't remember where I taught.
You taught at the
At the
State.
State Industrial, yeah, it's actually at the State Industrial School.
Yeah.
Yeah, my first year.
And what do you remember about that year, Grandpa?
Well, I remember the students were pretty hard to teach. They were all, had been in well, that's where we were at the State Reform, at the State Industrial School. And the students were, they were pretty well controlled because they were in this State Industrial School.
Yeah.
And
They actually lived there. They had some kind of a record, all of them. They
yeah,
were.
they were all,
So, but they were really nice kids. Kind of.
they weren't hard to handle because they were controlled by the situation.
Yeah.
But they were, I remember they weren't, I almost felt like I didn't want to teach after that year. You know?
Interesting, because it was that difficult?
Yeah, it was kind of, well, I didn't feel like I was accomplishing a great deal with them. You know what I mean? But yes, I did, I was concerned and tried hard to teach, but they weren't interested. I mean, and it's hard, those memories are so faint. But they were kids that, how would you say it?
They'd been arrested.
They'd all been arrested, and then they were found guilty in there. So they were different, but I didn't have a lot of trouble teaching them. I mean, as far as behavior, but as far as them being interested, that was
They
kind of, they weren't. And the problem with that is your first year of teaching, you know,
Yeah.
and they're not interested in. I can't tell you a lot about it. There wasn't a big class. They were, but it was mixed, boys and girls, and it wasn't there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but it was hard because I was so interested in teaching history and they weren't interested in learning.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the best year. But I remember Bishop, what was his name? Garfield.
Garfield.
Bishop Garfield said, no, don't make that your idea of your career.
Yeah.
And so he got me a position in the public schools the next year.
And he went on to teach at BYU and Kim Hattie.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Roland Garfield.
She
He
ended up
was
having it.
amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. We loved them. We, that's when we moved. We had kind of an interesting thing. But I want to go back because he did some amazing things with the kids.
Oh,
Most
cool.
of
Tell me
them,
about it.
most of them couldn't read.
Wow.
And so he helped them learn to read. But how he did it was with comic books.
Yeah.
That is smart.
Yeah.
And he just
Wow.
got a whole bunch of comic books and took them. And they loved the comic
Wow.
books.
Yeah.
I loved comic books when I was little.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman was my hero. She
Those memories are so
yeah.
faint to me now.
Yeah, he really worked hard with them. But it was sad because some of them got worse, you know, and
Yeah.
they got in trouble and everything.
I imagine that would be discouraging,
Yeah.
Grandpa.
It was pretty discouraging.
He got up every morning and threw up before he went to school.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of a hard year, but it taught me a lot about discipline, you know, which I carried back into the public schools, and it made an interesting career because if in the public schools they had probably put in my class.
Oh, interesting, because you
Yeah,
have developed this
because I
discipline.
developed the ability to handle them, and I very grateful for that first year, but it was a mixed feeling about education. And I don't really carry very many memories about individuals, but I remembered that I cared a lot about them and tried hard, but didn't feel as successful as a teacher
Yeah.
because of that. But once I got into public schools, it was a totally different attitude that came over me and my ability. And then, what was my first public school? It was,
South Junior High School, yeah, that's where he started.
and that's where I ended.
Interesting. So you had 1 year at the State Industrial School.
And
Then you went to South and you were there your whole career.
yeah,
Wow. That is
And he
amazing.
taught at Bonneville too.
yeah.
So
Oh, so you taught both?
he
But-
taught
but-
night school at Bonneville
Okay.
I
for the
taught,
kids that
I
had
taught
dropped out.
I taught 7th, 8th, and 9th grade in the junior high, of course. So. And 7th grade it was Utah history.
Okay.
And 8th grade it was U.S. history. And 9th grade was world geography. Now, geography was a half-year subject.
Oh.
7th grade and 8th grade, 7th grade was full year. And 8th grade is full year U.S. history. And 9th grade is half-year world geography.
Okay.
So you got new kids half a year.
Oh,
You know.
okay.
But that was my curriculum and my career. And I enjoyed teaching history very much. In fact, I enjoyed all the subjects. Utah history was harder because the textbook was probably 10 years old when I started teaching.
Oh, wow.
It was Milton R. Hunter's 7th grade Utah history book. And it was hard to teach from. There's no other material, just the book.
That would be hard.
You know what I mean? So I created the lesson plans, I created the
Oh,
tests
interesting.
and everything for it. I did that also in all my classes at first. There was no lesson manual for U.S. history at the time, or world. So it was, you had to create the lesson and you had to create the test
Wow.
and everything. But Milton R. Hunter's book was not what I would call a very professionally written book.
Oh, interesting.
You know, that book had been around for years. I don't even know. When I finished teaching, I think I'm still teaching out of it.
No, you've got new history.
For
But I
Utah
don't know.
history, I don't remember.
But I can't remember.
But
All the stuff about
U.S.
it.
history book changed several times in those
Yeah, that makes
years,
sense.
and world geography did. But I don't remember ever getting a different Utah history book. If we did, I don't remember it.
I can't think of the name of the author, but if I could, you would remember.
But anyway, yeah. So those are the subjects I taught. Then when I taught at night school at Bonneville, they were kids that were problems
Oh,
because they had flunked or they kicked out of class.
Or was people coming back?
Yeah, and it was interesting because having taught at the State Reform School my first year, I could do a better job of handling those problem kids
Oh, that makes
at
sense.
night school, and I did pretty well with all of the kids I taught. I don't remember ever having terrible problems with discipline. In fact, I think my first year was my hardest year because of who I taught.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the rest of my career was pretty normal as a teacher, and I loved my American history the most. because that's what I loved as a teacher. And I come to love Utah history quite a lot too, you know. And lots of interesting things happened, but my memory's kind of faint on it. But I remember Utah history was hard to teach without getting into gospel.
I believe that.
And what you had as a background, and it was fun because you were teaching the settlement of Utah and what happened in the history of Utah, and I taught all my kids.
Cool.
At some point, you know.
That is really cool.
Yeah. My mind is kind of blank on it, but I remember, you'll have to help me, but I remember having, in 7th grade did I have all my kids in the 7th grade? I don't remember
I don't
for
remember.
sure.
But you know, you taught all of them at least.
I remember teaching my own children, but I can't remember which grade
class
particularly I taught them in. But those were good years, and very interesting years. And I also remember going to Utah State in the summers to get my master's degree.
Oh,
and that was in U.S. history and education classes too.
okay.
So my bachelor's degree was in history, U.S. history, well, basically history, and I think geography. I think I had some geography in my bachelor's.
Okay.
Mine is in sociology.
Yeah, and
Okay.
my master's was, again, more history. I think my professors made me go into, remember, Canadian history class.
Oh, wow.
Lots of different history classes to get my master's in history. But much of my master's was in social studies and education.
Okay.
More, you know, rather than all history. So I had a master's in education and history, and I can't remember the years at all. Can you? When I got my master's was several years after my bachelor's.
Oh, yeah.
Because I didn't go back immediately. Raising kids and you know, and I remember being in the bishopric too. And
Well, that's a good segue. I'd be curious to hear more about your ward when you were first married. I know you said you were financial clerk. You said you were in Young Women, that you loved it. Maybe tell me more about that first.
It was so fun. I love the girls. I still love the girls. I wish I knew where they were. But we had a great group. I was Young Women's class. I taught a class and then I became Young Women's president. But we had a really small Young Women's, so we were really close. And we would meet every Sunday morning at our house. This is actually the second year of our marriage, so this isn't the first year.
That's okay.
But the second year of our marriage, we lived in, I'll kind of tell you where we lived. We lived in that sixplex, and then we, in the summertime, we moved to this little tiny apartment in the same ward on the second floor. And
it was an old house, wasn't it? Yeah.
An old house, but we were on we were on the first floor. And then we moved to what used to be the president's home for Weber State College.
Oh, wow.
Because it used to be down there instead of up on Harrison. And we lived in the president's home, which was a beautiful home, but there were 4 apartments, and we were downstairs, and then our Bishop Garfield, was upstairs. So we were really close friends.
Special.
Really close friends. But our first year in this little apartment, I'll tell you one story. I had never done a lot of really technical cooking. I had basically fed my sisters and my brother because my mother worked. But we had just, you know, stuff that wasn't that great. And then in college, we took turns cooking, my roommates and I, and what I cooked was not exciting at all because we were really poor. And so we had really interesting and strange meals. And so when we got married, I wanted to be this amazing, fantastic cook. And we would go to the grocery store once a week because we were pretty poor. We thought we were going to be really rich because he had a job, but we weren't really rich. And so we go to the store once a week and we get all the food for the week. And I would plan these meals. And this one time we bought this chicken and I thought, I'll fix a chicken dinner. So I called my grandma and I asked her, you know, how to fix this meal. I wanted to roast, because it was a whole chicken. So I wanted to roast it. So she told me what to do. She told me how to do everything because she was the most amazing cook on earth. And so I made this. I was so excited. And he came home and I had this table set.
Oh, wow.
Because my grandma had told me that no matter what you cook, if you have a nice table, if you set the table nicely, it makes such a big impression on the meal. So I had this really nice table set with all nice, and I had flour on the table and everything. I found this sunflower in the backyard.
Nice.
It was actually a weed, but it looked really pretty. And so I had this whole meal, and he came in the door. This was our first fight. He came in the door, and he said, what are we having for dinner? And I said, roasted chicken. I was so excited. And he said, where did you get the roasted chicken? The chicken's roast. And I said, we bought it on Saturday. And he said, no, that was a stewing hen. And I said,
don't know what that is.
I know, I didn't either.
Chicken.
It's an old chicken. And so you're supposed to stew it instead of roast it. But I didn't know that. And so I had roasted it. And so I just said, I was really hurt. And I said, well, just sit down. I'm sure it will be fine. You know, so we had the dinner. And when we went to cut the meat, it was just like, it was so tough. You could not cut it. I was so sad. I was so upset, especially that he knew it. And I didn't. So I went in the bathroom, which was for my whole life, was the place I would go when I was crying. So I went in the bathroom, and I just cried and cried. I was so sad. And so that was our first fight.
Cute. How long had you been married at that point? Was it early on, or?
It was probably about the 4th week.
Okay. Cute. That is so cute.
It was really bad. But I loved taking care of our little place. I loved decorating, and
You've always loved decorating.
Yeah, and I always had tried to make it really cute and everything. So that was really fun.
And Grandma, were you working or were you at home? I don't know how long it was until Tim came along.
I was home.
Okay.
Because we were trying to do what you're supposed to do. Have the wife home and the husband work. But I wanted to finish my nursing. So I went up to Weaver College, and it's only a 2-year program. And I've been in a 5-year program, so that was kind of a problem.
Okay.
So I thought I'd go to the University of Utah, but I didn't drive.
Oh.
And
so
he had the car.
Yeah,
And so I was really frustrated. So I worked up at St. Benedict's Hospital for a while. And
as a nurse? Or?
Not as a nurse, as a practical nurse.
Okay.
And then I worked, I took care of children before I got that job.
Okay.
And so, but it was fun. I just really was sad that I couldn't finish my nursing degree. But we loved it there. We loved that apartment. We got pregnant, and I lost baby.
Oh, wow.
And it was about 2 months, 2.5 months into the pregnancy. It was really sad because they were twins. It was twins.
Wow.
And so I was really sad. It was an awful experience, but
Yeah.
it was a growing experience because from that point on, because I had never wanted children. I had felt like I'd raised my little sisters and my brother, and I loved doing it, but I thought I'd had that experience kind of because Mama worked. And so I really wasn't interested. I wanted to be a nurse. That was my big thing, and I wanted to finish being a nurse. But when I lost that, we hadn't planned these babies, and so when I lost them, then I kind of got in perspective. And I think it was really good for me because I realized I really did want to focus on being a mother. And that's when I changed my focus. So it helped me to change my focus because from that point on, my goal was to be a really good mom and not a really good nurse. And so...
And how far into your marriage was this?
Let's see. We've been married probably 5 months.
Okay.
And so it was really sad.
Yeah.
And there was a lady in the ward who I became close friends with. She actually had 5 children, but she was really kind. And she kind of helped me through it. It was a hard experience. But then we got pregnant with him. So that was good. And
how much longer was that, like, in between?
Not very much, because we were married. Tim was born in December of our 2nd year of marriage.
And you were married in August?
We were married in August.
Okay.
So it wasn't that long.
A year and a half or so later?
Yeah. And so it was, no, it wasn't even that. But we, when the school year was over, we moved into that little tiny apartment.
Okay.
And we had friends that lived up above us, and it was just, we had so much fun. It was at that point, well, it was a little bit before that all the young couples in the ward decided that we were all really poor. And so every Friday night we would pool all our food, and whatever it was, we would eat it.
Oh, that's funny.
We would get together every Friday night, and we would have these really different meals. Because it was everything left over from the week.
Problem of economics. It's hard to believe now, but my first contract in teaching was how much?
$3,600 a year.
That's a year.
Wow.
And we thought that was
$3,600
really
a
good.
Yeah, car payment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you got a new car.
I bought that Mercedes.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
$3,600 a year. You guys were rolling in the dough.
we thought we were when we first started, but then we
seemed
didn't
like
realize.
it, you know. Until yeah, it was interesting.
It opens your eye, huh?
Yeah, it really does.
That makes me curious. I mean, what did you feel like the adjustment was from, you know, single or engaged life to now married life? I mean, what kind of adjustment do you remember feeling?
Balance all the ins and outs of work and what she was doing, and I would come home that first year because of how hard it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't an easy year.
Yeah. What do you remember about it, Grandma?
I thought it was really fun.
Well, I don't mean that. I mean,
Yeah. I was probably happier than he was because he had a really hard job.
Yeah.
But I was loving being married, and it was fun because Grandma Clicky, she couldn't drive, so she had a friend who drove, so she would come up during the day and bring lunch. And,
oh, that's fun.
you know, we would she was a great support, and we would go down to her house on Sundays after church, and we would have dinner there, and so we got really, really involved still with her.
Yeah.
Coming from a different area, but definitely she was a huge part of our lives.
Interesting.
We really had a lot to do with her. but I didn't drive. And so that was interesting. I didn't drive until I was 30.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So it was...
When you say that Grandma Kluge, was a big part of your lives, what do you mean? Like, in what sense?
She was a real support. And then we used to go there, like, all the time, and help her.
She needed us to go.
Yeah, we went
Like, you were
almost
a
every
caretaker
Saturday.
almost, or-
Well,
Not really, because she wasn't that bad yet.
Okay.
But actually, she was more of a caretaker.
Oh.
Because we would go down there and she would have these wonderful meals. And,
Oh,
you know,
that's
she was
nice.
just really sweet. And she'd always do really nice things for us. And we loved being with her.
I remember doing a lot for her. What did we do? Just clean? I can't remember. I
Not
worked
the
in the
first
yard
year.
at the time.
Yeah, you worked in the yard. We both worked in the yard. Grandpa passed away, so...
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
right.
so we helped her as much as we could, but it was more a give and take. 'Cause
Okay.
she was fine.
Okay.
And so anyway, it was very fun. She was very nice and supportive and helpful.
I've got to tell you one thing
Hmm.
that's interesting. My two brothers came out to visit
Oh, fun.
while we were there. Now, wasn't that what? No, I can't remember what
I
it
think
was.
you already told that story about the cherries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remind me, I don't remember it.
We were it's before we were
she
married.
had, oh, that was before. I'm sorry.
That's okay, I don't remember the story. Remind
Well,
me.
she had a cherry tree.
Grandma.
Okay.
And we picked, I don't know how many cherries.
Grandpa was still alive at this time.
Was he at
Okay.
that time? I'm sorry. That's
So you and your two brothers were picking a whole bunch of cherries.
They had this huge cherry tree in their yard. They used
Okay.
to sit under it with their chairs.
Oh, cute.
And when I was a little girl, I'd sit with them and so it was a big deal. The cherry tree was a big deal. There were two of them.
I'm sorry, I got
So
mixed
what-
up on the time.
That's
That's
all right.
okay. What did
This
you and
is
your
a good
brothers do?
story.
Tell me about it.
We ate cherries. We ate cherries. Now we got sicker than a dog.
Oh no!
They were driving back to Colorado. No,
Yeah.
you were driving down to Grand Canyon. You and your brothers went down to Grand Canyon.
Eating cherries the whole way?
Yeah.
You were
And
with,
they each, no,
why did I go with just them? I
you were having a trip with them.
can't remember.
And but on the way to Grand Canyon, they had all these cherries, and that's all
That's
they
what
ate.
happened.
And you guys just got really sick?
Oh yeah,
What do you remember about it?
I remember pulling off and
Being sick.
throwing up. And my brothers were sick too. I can't remember why I took just the two of them.
Just for
That's
fun.
funny.
Just for fun. You
That-
guys doing it.
That's a funny story.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I don't think you told me that
Oh.
last time. That's good. I'm glad you remembered it
Yeah,
now.
but I remember that cherry tree.
Hmm.
It was, those were pigs, weren't they? They were wonderful,
Pigs, yeah.
sweet cherries.
Mm. Until you're throwing up.
Yeah,
Oh, and another interesting thing, the first year before we moved out of the sixplex, the girl that lived right next to us upstairs, she was, she had a really rough lifestyle, and she had several people coming in and out all the time,
Okay.
and was really funny. Our bathroom windows were right together, and one night one of the fellows crawled in our bathroom window instead of her bathroom window.
Oh no! Oh man!
So we ushered him out the front door.
Yes. Wow.
I know. But anyway, I really liked her. She was a really nice girl. She just had a rough life. And so she actually, her bedroom and our bedroom, the wall was the same.
Okay.
And so one night she just started banging on the wall and crying out for us. And so I went over there and she was having a miscarriage and she was really, really in trouble. So we rushed her up to the hospital and stayed with her and then her parents came and she moved. But before she moved, the reason I'm telling you this story is before she moved to thank us, she didn't have anything to give us. and she wanted to thank us, and so that's where I got my lemon pie recipe that I make all the time.
Interesting.
She gave me her great-grandmother's lemon pie recipe.
Wow.
And she said it was that they had kept it only in the family, but she asked her mother if it was okay if she gave it to me.
Wow.
So that's where I got the lemon pie recipe.
That's amazing.
And that's how the tradition started, that every birthday, instead of cake, he has lemon pie.
Great recipe.
It dates back to then.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's our
I
first
love
year.
that much more than any cake.
Yeah, and then
I think I
Matt,
remember you saying that.
Matt picked it up, and that's what he loved, and so Tiffany
Make the lemon pie.
makes the lemon pie. So I gave her the recipe.
Wow.
But
Interesting.
Anyway, that
Tiffany
first,
is like the incredible cook of the world.
Mm.
And so the first time, every time I made the lemon pie, it was runny. It was the only thing that was wrong with it. It was kind of runny.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what I did, it still was runny. And so when I gave it to Tiffany after she and Matt got married, we are really skipping here. But when I gave it to Tiff, I said the only problem with this pie is it's really kind of runny. First time she made it, it was perfect.
That's funny.
So,
but I really liked it the way it was, because it seeped into the graham cracker crust. And oh boy, was that good.
so
Anything
that was
else you
it.
remember from that first time before Tim was born? Any other major things that you guys can remember from about that time?
We went to Colorado in the summers,
Yeah.
and he would work for his dad on the
Oh,
ranch.
cool.
And I would help his mother in the house because she was a beautician,
Yeah.
so she worked all day, so I
And
would
Dad-
help
and
her.
Dad, Mom would help us by giving me a little salary as I
Yeah,
worked.
as
so
you worked
that,
around.
That helped in the summer, you know, to
Oh,
have
that makes sense.
extra income.
Yeah. So we went that first summer. We went up to Colorado. We loved it. We loved it up there. His parents were really nice, and we worked hard, but they were really sweet about it. And that's where probably I should go back, because when we were dating, maybe I told you this, when we were dating, we went to Colorado to visit, and yeah, I did tell you, and about his mother's donuts and everything. I think I told you about
Vaguely
that.
remember.
Yeah.
Was that when?
And so,
Is that when my brothers were going to wash my car for me?
no,
I don't
Was that
remember that
after we were
story.
married?
that was actually the kids.
I know, that's
kids.
what I'm saying. That was my brothers. It wasn't my children, was it?
Yeah, afraid so.
Wow.
Sorry,
But
Grandma, continue with your story
anyway,
though.
when we would go up there, it was a whole different lifestyle than I had ever known. His mom and dad, they did at night. He and his brothers and his dad would sit around the piano and sing.
Oh, you told me that. That's
Yeah.
right.
And so when we go up there, it's really nice to
That's cool.
sit there and listen to them sing and stuff. It was really fun, and then it's such a beautiful place. We used to hike and do things like that together. It was very
Have you ever
fun.
been there?
My parents have driven by there.
Yeah.
But we've driven by the old house, I think, but I've never
Well,
actually
I'll
spent
tell you
time
what, just a little bit of interest about it. They bought the Emo Ranch across the valley, and that was a wonderful place to go and climb and hike, and it was just a beautiful. You were up on near the Continental Divide, and you know, high elevation and so peaceful. I helped build fences on the Emo Ranch, and because
Wow.
they had purchased it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of work to do up there, and yet it was my growing up place, and I dearly loved the valley and the culture,
Yeah.
fishing in the stream.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything about that was very much reminded me of my youth. But it was hard for Jerri because it wasn't at all the same kind of things she knew. But
That's fun.
it was fun, but it was different.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it had not yet become the commercial area it is now.
Oh, that makes sense.
You know, there were ranches and there were ranch land, and the roads were not improved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was very different. But it started changing when we would go up there.
But the first summer, we didn't stay there the whole summer because we lived in that little apartment.
That's right.
But it was hilarious. It was hilarious. It was really old. And the bedroom was so tiny that it only fit the bed. And I mean only fit the bed. You had to kneel in the hall for prayer. You could not kneel by the bed. And when you walked around the bed, you had to kind of go, you know. You couldn't walk normally. You had to lean up against the wall to get into the bed.
Oh, wow.
The dresser was in the hall. And honestly, and the bathroom was so tiny, you could sit on the toilet, wash your hands in the sink, put your feet in the tub.
Wow.
I mean, it was tiny.
All at the same time.
It was so tiny. But the living room was bigger, and the kitchen was not that big, but the living room was bigger. So we would have firesides and things like that for the youth.
Nice.
So it was fun. That was a fun apartment. Mainly, I was pregnant with Tim there. And
Was that the one in the old house? Or
no, we moved there. The reason we lived in the little tiny apartment is because we already had been promised that we could move into the president's home in the fall. So I started being pregnant there.
In that little apartment before you moved in. Now, Grandpa, I'd be curious to hear your perspective on what were your thoughts about starting your family, like as far as now Tim, you're getting pregnant with Tim. Do you remember being nervous or excited or a little bit of both?
There was a little bit of worry because she lost her first one, you know.
Yeah.
And we wanted so much for her to carry the Tim that she did carry. And it was a time of prayer and concern and being busy in new callings, you know, and adjusting. And that job was not much fun that year. So glad when the second year started to go to the public schools and stuff like that. But my memory is fading so fast that I don't remember.
One thing that happened to me was I'd never been around black people ever.
Oh, interesting.
Because New Hampshire does not have. I didn't know any black people ever. And so he taught with a lady that was black, and it was my first association with her, and I just loved her.
She was a great teacher.
She was a great teacher and a great person.
Was this at the public school or was this at
the Reform School?
Okay.
So I learned to appreciate their culture that year because she became a good friend.
What was interesting, this is the prejudice that still existed. She had trouble getting a position in the public schools. But this was a state school, the state reform. And so she was able to get a contract there. So we became very close friends. She was a great girl, great lady.
Do you remember her name?
No.
Oh, I sure don't.
That's okay. That's okay, I was just curious.
I cannot remember her name. We didn't see her after that year, but they moved away. They went back to their home in the South, but it was very good for me to learn to appreciate another culture.
Yeah.
But then, we had so many funny stories with this group of young marrieds. And we kind of helped each other be new young marrieds because all of us were like first, second year of marriage.
So, living in apartments, you know.
Oh, and the other thing is my roommate, Marion, she got married and her husband was just a wonderful man, and we did a lot with them.
Oh, that's nice.
We had picnics and we went out to tea with them and we had no television, so we didn't have a television for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, but we didn't really need it. We both liked to read, and it was fun.
Yeah.
We just did other things. I did a lot with the young women.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, we moved into, and I was first pregnant in the little apartment, and the girl up above was pregnant too. And so we kind of did things together, and one of the things I found was, it's really true that you crave certain foods. And I craved, and you will die, but I craved liverwurst sandwiches.
What?
I did.
Oh my goodness.
And so I would have a liverwurst sandwich every day for lunch, and I would put tons of mustard on it. And I would have that every day with Campbell's tomato soup.
Wow, that is such a random thing.
I know.
That is so funny. I've never heard of that craving before.
I know, and she loved cherries and pickles. So anyway, I don't know why I remember them.
That's funny.
And then we moved into the president's home, and that was really fun because it was big. The apartment was big, but there was one little tiny problem. It had cockroaches.
Oh.
Yeah. And so we struggled with cockroaches, and that's where Tim was born when we were there.
Yeah.
And
what do you remember? I asked Grandpa his thoughts about starting a family and if he was nervous or excited. What do you remember about Tim's pregnancy?
I was so excited because I was actually keeping the baby. I was very frightened at first because I thought that I might lose the baby. And I would have been a lot more frightened if I knew I had that syndrome that made you lose babies, but I didn't know that. So,
Interesting.
so I was just very nervous at first, but very excited.
How did you get through that first part when you were so nervous? What'd you...
I prayed a lot. I prayed a lot.
Yeah.
And I had a really good doctor that was very calming. He's the one that got me through the first situation. And so he was really good, and he was very careful because I'd lost the first babies. And so I was really nervous. But then when I got to 3.5 months, he said not to worry.
Good.
That seemed to be the magic number, which wasn't really for me, but at that time it was for me. And so then I was really mad because my grandma had made me all these maternity blouses, and I didn't get big because I'm so tall. And I'm not a tiny person, and so I was skinny then, but I didn't show. And so
that's funny.
I kept saying, "Oh shoot!" And Grandma would say, "Have you worn, the different ones?" I haven't, because so finally at 7 months I decided I'm gonna wear them. So
That's
I
funny.
started wearing.
And what were preparations like back then to having a baby? Like as far as
There's
how
none
did
of
you
the
prepare?
good stuff. They didn't have like ultrasounds or any of those kind of things. And you did not know what you were going to have. You had no clue what you were going to have.
Yeah, I never knew. And I never got to go in either.
You never got to see a baby born.
Oh, the husbands weren't allowed in the
No,
room at the time.
no.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No.
But one interesting thing to remember is my mother came out at the time, and she bought all kinds of stuff for us. Didn't
She was like Christmas.
She was.
When
She
Tim
was
was
so
born, or she
excited.
came before
She
Tim
came
was
when
born?
Tim was born. We had hardly anything for him except I've had a shower. The ladies in the ward, actually the young women, had thrown me in a shower, and I had some fun things, and I loved that too. I loved getting ready for him. I didn't know it was a him, but we did have a bassinet that my grandma had. It was old, and I kept it through all of the kids.
Cute.
It was a basket, and so we had a few things, but we didn't have a lot of things, but we didn't care.
What did my mom buy?
Oh, So she came when the baby was born. Oh, and another thing happened. We were driving to Grandma Cookie's one Sunday, and someone pulled out in front of us.
Oh, yikes.
And we had a really bad automobile accident. And
were you pregnant at the time?
I was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was almost 8 months.
Whoa.
And so I thought I was having the baby because my water broke, and so I thought, oh no, you know, the baby's been injured. I was so scared. They didn't have seatbelts, so I just went forward, you know, and I had scissors in my hand because I was cutting out letters for him for school, and somehow they went in the dashboard instead of me. But the ambulance came, and they said that my water had broken, and so they rushed me to emergency.
Wow.
And I was so scared because he wasn't really very big.
Okay.
And so it was really scary. But my water hadn't broken. I had wet my pants. Because you don't do very well on your bladder when you're that big.
Yeah.
So he was fine.
Oh, that's too funny.
But then,
so both of you were okay in this accident? Good.
but the car was in bad shape.
Well,
It wasn't totaled, but
well,
it was.
they fixed it.
Yeah, it wasn't, but it needed repair. So,
Okay.
excuse me, I guess I was probably 7 months along because it was taken to the shop and we didn't have a car. And so
Oh, wow.
he had to get rides to school and I walked everywhere.
Wow.
And I'd walk clear up to St. Benedict's Hospital. I mean,
Wow.
it was, and so I was probably healthier than, but when he started, oh gosh, this is going to be,
That's okay.
our first Christmas
Mm-hmm.
in that house, we had at home because I was so close to delivering and we didn't have a car.
Yeah.
And so we had it at home and it was really nice. It was really fun Christmas, just the two of us. And then Christmas night,
Okay.
I was in bed and my water broke. This time really broke. And I wasn't due until the end of January. And so it was about a month early. And so, of course, I called the doctor and he said, let's see what happens.
Okay.
And so I was kind of excited because my grandpa's birthday was the 27th of December, and this was going into the 26th. So I thought, oh, for sure, I'll have the baby on his birthday, which was like, I really wanted to have the baby on his birthday. Well, I went clear through that day. And
Did you? Wow.
so, and I had really a lot of labor, but no baby.
Okay.
And so...
In the hospital or still at home?
Still at home. And so then they said, after 24 hours since my water was broken, they said I was susceptible for infection.
Okay.
So I called them in the morning and I said, I think I'm really in labor now. I was in so much pain, I thought. And so I got to the doctor's office and I said, oh, I know the baby's just about to come. And she goes, oh, if you only knew. Because I was still walking. And she said, no, you have a long way to go. And I went in, I had a long way to go. But they went ahead and put me in the hospital because they didn't want me to get an infection.
Okay.
But I went through that whole day and no baby. And then he was born 28th.
Oh.
Instead of the 27th. I guess he wanted his own day.
I guess so.
But I was in labor for a long time.
And did they have medicine back then for you?
I
or-
had him without any medication. I really was trying to not have any medication. So I didn't have anything. I
Gotcha.
just had him. And it was a lot more painful than when I walked in the doctor's office.
I believe that.
I had no idea how
absolutely
bad it was
believe
going to be.
It was so exciting. I couldn't believe I was a father. Something. It's hard to explain, but that's really why you start a family. Children are the blessing that you have. It's not just a couple.
It's true, huh? It's so fulfilling. It's so beautiful. And when he was born, it was just incredible. And Dr. Farr said his head's out, and I couldn't believe it. And he said, you know, I had me set up, and I could see this little head, and he had lots of hair, and I just was so excited. And of course, I pushed him out, and he wet in the doctor's face. That's the first thing he did.
That's funny. That's really funny.
So, but, oh my gosh, I could not believe it. It was the hugest miracle. I just could not believe it. I loved being pregnant. I loved it. I loved laying on the bed and watching my stomach roll. I loved the baby's movements. I just loved that part of it. I'm lucky because I'm tall and I was never super uncomfortable.
Okay.
And so I just enjoyed that experience. I wasn't nauseated.
Wow.
And so it was really wonderful. And I loved every minute, and I didn't have scary things.
Yeah.
At first I was scared, but once things calmed down and I knew that this was actually going to happen, I just loved laying on the bed and watching my stomach roll.
That's awesome. That's funny.
So when he was born, he was just, oh my gosh, he was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. He was so beautiful. He had really, really blue eyes. And he was totally tan. He looked like he was small. And of course, I didn't realize that was because he had a problem. But
Oh, interesting.
but he was so tan. It looked like he'd been in Hawaii. You
Wow.
know, just sunning during his whole gestation. And then he has
Did you know immediately that his name was going to be Tim, or how did you?
No. No, we didn't. We knew we wanted to name our sons after disciples of Jesus Christ.
Oh, cool.
And so we were thinking Peter, because Peter was my favorite. And so we were thinking Peter. But then we thought Peter Robert Roush sounds like Peter Rabbit.
That's true, it does.
So we thought he might get teased.
That's funny.
So then we started studying, and we loved Timothy. And just what a dedicated, selfless disciple he was. And how much he loved serving and teaching of Jesus Christ. And we just really loved Timothy, so we named him Timothy.
Awesome. That's cool.
And then after him, Robert, and then Roush. But I just will never get over how beautiful. Oh, he was just so beautiful. I thought, how could I have such a beautiful baby? I mean, he was just so beautiful, and he was so tiny. He was only 6 pounds, 2 ounces.
Wow.
And he was 18 inches long, so he was little.
Yeah.
And I was so proud of him. It was just perfect.
You mentioned that something was wrong?
Well, he had rubella, or not rubella. What is it when they need to be under the light? I can't think right now.
Jaundice?
Yeah, jaundice.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes, and so his bilirubin was
His
off.
bilirubin, okay.
Couldn't think of the word.
That's okay.
And so he had to be And they didn't know about all the stuff they do now.
Oh, interesting.
And so they just had him under kind of a light bulb thing.
Okay.
But he was okay.
Good.
But he was really dark skinned anyway. I don't know where this comes from. But it looks really good.
Yes, it does.
And so then we didn't have a car. And so when I had to be taken to the hospital, our neighbors had to
Wow.
take us to the hospital. And then when we came home, our neighbors had to come get us.
That is incredible. Wow.
And so then his mother came, and that's when one day she said, I'm just going to be gone for a little while. And the next thing I know, all these trucks pull up, and she bought a crib and changing table and
Wow.
a little bathtub and scales, and I mean, she just bought a playpen,
Wow.
high
That's
chair.
nice of her.
I had everything that went through all the kids.
Wow, that's
So,
amazing.
Yeah, and the crib she bought was the brand new style, and it was a net side
Okay.
instead of the normal, and that's what we used all the way through all our children until Andy, and Andy figured out how to cut the netting.
Oh, wow.
And he crawled out through the little hole.
Oh, my goodness. Andy, classic. That's funny. Wow.
But anyway, that was very exciting,
Yeah.
bringing him home and
Yeah.
being new parents. I thought that I would be such a calm new parent because I'd raised my sisters and my brother and had a lot to do with them. So I thought I would have no problem. I was a total mess. I'd read all these books, Dr. Spock, and he was kind of the one I read. And it said that if they have a lot of diarrhea, they could be dehydrated within just a few hours. So when I brought him home, nobody told me that if you nurse, the baby's stools are looser.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and he never slept. He was not a sleeper from the very beginning. And so I was up with him and these loose stools, and so I was just panic stricken. So I called Dr. Balkin, who had never met us except in the hospital to check him. I called him at 5 in the morning
Oh, wow.
at his home, and I said, I think my baby's dehydrated because he's had loose stools all night long, and so I thought I better call you quickly because we just brought him home. And he just, I can just see what he did, but he just said, I'm sure he was shaking his head, and he just said, oh, new mothers. He said, is this your first baby, isn't it? And I said, yes. And he said, oh, new mothers.
Wow, that's funny.
And so he explained to me that when you nurse, that things are a little looser.
Ah, that's funny.
So I calmed down.
That's really funny.
I thought I'd be so casual about it. I was not at all.
That's great. I guess I would, before we have to close for today, just my final question to both of you, maybe Grandpa first and then Grandma. Any other specific or special memories or moments or thoughts about, the birth and maybe that first bringing him home?
To me, growing up in a home that didn't share, Mom never talked about giving birth, right? Dad was it was all new to me, totally new.
Interesting.
I just wanted to hold him and just, it was scary to me the first time I changed the diaper, the first time I had a lot to learn.
It was such a miracle.
Yeah.
I think that's what I remember the most is it's such a miracle. And he gave me a blessing, which was very special. And we really didn't know it. And so when he was born a boy, then I got to tell him on the phone, because he was out in the hall.
You're not allowed to.
Oh, and so they told you over the phone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then the nurse would carry the baby out to show him. I didn't get to show him, so she carried him out. I don't know. How did you feel?
I grateful, and so very grateful for my Father in heaven that she had carried it and delivered it,
Yeah.
and everything was fine. But again, it's kind of a remote because you didn't even get to see her for a while, and the baby was taken to a what do you call it?
Nursery.
Nursery, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, it was just
But
beautiful.
I was so grateful. I can't tell you how grateful I am that she loved nursing and wanted to nurse all of her babies. I never remember fixing a bottle
Interesting.
until a long time afterwards.
Well, at that time, men didn't do a lot. I mean, they loved them, but they didn't do them. And the first diaper he changed was the most hilarious experience of my life. Because I walked in
And you've got to remember, in that time, it was just cloth diapers.
cloth diapers.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And folded them and all that.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was nothing like you have today.
No wipes, nothing like
Oh,
that.
wow.
You had to use
Interesting.
toilet paper. Anyway, I walked into the bedroom, and you could see into the bathroom, and he was sitting on the edge of the tub, and he had the diaper by maybe 1 centimeter of cloth, and he was just going like this. Into the toilet because he had to rinse it out and then put it in the diaper pail. It was hilarious. I think that's the last time he changed it.
Wow.
But it was wonderful. It was a marvelous experience. And it was so funny because he wanted 6 children. I didn't want any when we were first married. And after I had him, I wanted 6 children and he wanted 1. Because
Flip-flopped.
That isn't quite true.
No,
Yeah.
he wanted more. But I definitely, after that, I wanted, oh my gosh,
Craved more. Interesting.
as many as you could possibly have. It was such a marvelous, beautiful experience.
It was wonderful. Don't want to jump ahead, but then the next child was a blessing too.
Well, we'll pick it up there
And
next time.
I
as
got to
well.
tell you this.
Yeah.
She was the first girl. How many
4
generations?
generations.
4 generations.
4 generations of Roushes.
They were all boys.
That's amazing. And she was the only one, and then there were 3 Roush boys. Wow, that'll be fun to talk about next
Oh,
time.
yeah.
I'm excited. Well, thank you guys.